This is Nina Lockwood. Welcome to Get Your Happy Back. Stories and insights that will inspire you to find new sources of happiness in your own life. Imagine meeting someone who can see your energy and actually paint what your soul looks like. That's Leiah Bowden. And in this conversation, she shares how color, intuition, and the simplest sensory moments can reconnect you to joy in ways that you might never expect. And this isn't just about happiness, it's about remembering who you really are. Welcome to Get Your Happy Back. Today, I have the distinct and long-awaited pleasure of talking with my friend Leiah Bowden. Hi, Leiah. So nice to see you.
I am so delighted to be here, Nina. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Long overdue. So I'm going to let Leiah introduce herself and tell you a little bit about what she does, and then we'll wrap that into something special that has to do with happiness and well-being and joy and fulfillment. So over to you, my dear.
Happiness, joy, well-being, and fulfillment is a way I could describe my life. I have been so fortunate. I was born in Schenectady, New York, to two people who loved each other and respected each other. My childhood was relatively free from feelings of depression. No, totally free from feelings of depression. That came later. But I grew up in a pretty happy household. I was spanked once at age 5, and I remember being furious with my father. And I know that all he did was that. But of course, that's not a good thing to do. But that was it. I was not yelled at. I was not hit. I was not degraded. I was honored. I was loved. I was cherished. And when people have asked me sometimes, how is it that you seem to have such a wonderful outlook on life? How is it that you experience the universe flowing through you, which I do, as a great blessing? I know that the true answer is that I came in as a whole, happy soul, and the family which nourished me honored that and honored me. Because without that, we are wounded in ways that are hard to grab and turn around. So I was a happy child. I grew up, went through my teens feeling ugly and very self-conscious and wondering when the sun would shine on my life all the time.
Those teenage years.
Those teenage years, that's right. And in my mid-20s, I discovered the joys of extrasensory perception. I learned about it. I started learning in my teens. In my 40s, that sense became stronger and stronger. I studied with a teacher. I developed my intuition, and from there, all wonderful things have flowed. Right now, I describe myself as a lifelong ecstatic. I am, I am ecstatic. I see the world flowing around me with its grief, and I thank all that is, that I am standing outside for the most part. I'm standing outside that grief. When energy workers have worked on me, they have said, oh my God, you're holding so much grief. Well, they perceive it because they're sensitive energy workers, and they perceive it as it is hidden deep within me. So yes, over the 80 years that I have been on this planet, of course, I have carried the grief from the other lives I live in my multidimensional fullness, as we all live many lives all at the same time in our multidimensional fullness. But my day-to-day life is blessed by a wonderful family, a son and daughter-in-law who adore me and take good care of me, a delightful grandchild, a community of spiritual people who see me the way I want to be seen and who invite me to give the gifts of my heart in the ways that it pleases me and feeds me to do so. I have written a couple of books. I create portraits of the flow of energy through people, in which people will say, "Oh, I don't want you to do my energy portrait. You will see what I'm ashamed of." And I say, "No, I won't." I don't watch the news on TV. I barely read the news in the Times and the Washington Post. I don't want to see the world's or anyone else's griefs and traumas. I know they're there. And sometimes I actually know about them. But what I look at when I see people from an energetic view, when I'm doing these portraits, is I see the radiant, authentic, divine self as it shines through us. And so that's not I did this and then I did this and then I did this biography, but it's the way I see myself flowing through the world, grateful and appreciative and happy to be here.
Well, I love what you're saying, and I love the energy portrait that you did for me, oh, those many years ago. And I think what you're sharing for many people will be unfamiliar territory, although many people at this point have had some kind of energy work, whether even if it's acupuncture or qigong or something that's a little bit more in the mainstream. But what I have a hunch about is that your ability to see what you see is certainly a good ingredient in the mixture of what happiness can be, to be able to go beyond the trees, if you don't mind that analogy, to see the whole forest, the beauty of the whole forest, the sunlight, the leaves, the ground, the birds, all of the animals, so that you have this very wide perspective. And many people, many women that are professional women and they're on that professional gerbil wheel don't have that opportunity to see it. So speak a little bit more about maybe how someone could even begin to tap into that other reality. The multidimensional one might be a little bit of a jump for a lot of people, but just to begin to see what else is possible.
I do want to say that I had a real job. I had a real job until I retired in 2014. I know what it is to be in a corporate environment, in an office environment, in an environment where people are jealous if you're doing too good a job, where people are miserable in the job that they're doing, and yet they continue in that job for many reasons, as we all know. I have always, because of who I always have been, it has always been very important for me to find a way to feel happy. When I don't feel happy, it's very hard. And so I know that one way that happiness finds me is through nature, through walking. Now, people in a strictly urban environment may find it hard to find nature. I lived for several years in New York City. For nature was the view out my window of the sky. It was the sound of the birds that came in through my window. It was walking down the street, noticing in between the cracks in the pavement where there might be an ant crawling or the occasional tree. Even photographs of nature are helpful. Did you ever, now I don't know if they have these anymore. When I was a child at Easter time, there were these plastic Easter eggs with little dioramas inside
Oh,
them.
yes.
Or and I would look inside them and be totally drawn in by this little teeny weeny scene. It is possible to go beyond ourselves by looking at a miniature, by letting ourselves be drawn into something very small that can envelop us. And the same thing can be done by scent. Aromatherapy is something that we may be using even though we don't call it aromatherapy. Febreze, for example, has made its fortune through aromatherapy, through telling people, you'll feel better when your clothes smell like this. So finding scents, SCENTS, that just make you feel good, whether it's mint or chocolate or rose or patchouli or coffee, whatever it is. I would say being conscious of what helps us feel good, if even for a couple of seconds. Oh, there it is. That's the key. Don't just go, oh boy, that's good, and then go on to what's not good. I think allowing ourselves the time, even if it's a minute, and a minute in a very busy day can be hard to find, but even allowing a few seconds of acknowledging that something makes us feel a little bit better, a scent, a photograph. Think of how many people have photographs of something they love as their screensaver. I certainly do. And looking at something and going into that something, everything is real. And if you don't believe that, that's okay. You don't have to believe it. But just notice the effect of something you enjoy on how you feel. To me, if something can help me feel different than the way I felt a second ago, that's real. Real to me is, how does it affect me? Does it affect me? So finding something that just takes your attention away from the ugh, just even a little bit, and doing it several times a day helps. Also, breathing. Breathing is very helpful. Breathing from the belly through the nostrils. I have never been a Zen meditator, but a very good friend of mine teaches Zen meditation. And I sat in on one of her classes once, and all it was breathing. She said, just be aware of your breath. If a thought comes in, okay, let it come in, let it go out, return to just noticing your breath. And I did it for like 20 minutes. And my goodness, I felt so wonderful. I hadn't been feeling bad when I went in, but the attention to the breath, it's calming, it's meditative, and obviously music that makes you feel good. But here's my number one trick on how to feel good is, do not watch the news on TV or on your phone, whether you call it TV or not. Do not give your precious attention to the world's meanness. I was once a member of a group called Transform Media in 1983 and 1984 in New York City. We were a group of communicators who decided that we would try to influence the media so that when there was a terrible thing that happened and the news cameras came out and your house was on fire, they were interviewing you. They wouldn't say, how awful does it feel that you've just lost everything? They might ask you, how does it feel to get that grief? But then they would go to a neighbor and they would say, I noticed that you've just brought out some food and clothes. How wonderful. Thank you. And you ask, how does that help you feel? We wanted there to be some mirror of the reality of most people's lives, which is that there's usually some kind of help somewhere. And so in that year that I was doing that, I was in the NBC building in New York City because I had business in the NBC building. And I was in an elevator and a guy in a suit came in. And I don't know how we got talking about it, or maybe I just asked him, I said, are you, do you do something with the news? And he said, yes, I do. I said, well, I'd like to ask you if it's possible when you report the news to report the helpful angles. Why is it always that the news reports what's terrible? And he said, because what's good is what's normal for most people. And we need to show people what's unusual, because what's unusual is what sells.
Right.
The media, I don't blame the media for the world's ills. I'm not one of those people. But the business of the media is to sell their time to advertisers. And so how to sell their time is to stand out and grab people by the
Shock them.
gut.
Yes.
Grab people by the gut and make people go,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's not what good news does. Good
No,
news
not
makes
at
people
all.
know. And so the news as it is presented in the media, with some exceptions, of course, is geared to make you afraid.
Of course. And then you have to then keep watching the news. It's addictive.
It is addictive. Most of my friends watch the news. And frankly, one of the ways I make sure that I know what's happening in case I have to evacuate is I count on my friends. Um, and most of them say, I know I shouldn't. I know it makes me anxious, but I have to know. And of course, there's always something. I was going to say these days, we really want to watch the news and know what's going on. There's always something that is presented to us that is going to affect our lives if it happens or if it doesn't happen. I
I
think,
wanted to go back, excuse me for interrupting. I wanted to go back to what you were talking about noticing from a sensory standpoint. There is now, I think this started in the teens, 2000 teens, a new area of research called neuroaesthetics, how things that are sense-based, sensory-based affect the brain. And they and not just art, formal art, but everything that you're saying, music, nature, sound, touch, smell, taste, all of those things have the power to release all of those good feeling biochemicals, serotonin and the endorphins, and they have a calming effect on us. We take it for granted, but golly, how many people now are familiar with aromatherapy? How many people, so many people now are, or a good massage, or even getting your nails done.
yeah,
There's some, yeah, I love that blue. That all has an effect on us. And I think the more we pay attention to that, as you're saying, it has a tremendous effect on taking us away from distraction, taking us away from the monkey mind in our brains that are just pointing to the things that could be scary to us or could feel daunting to us. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you, which you probably already know, is that David Byrne from Talking Heads has an online publication called Reasons to Be Cheerful.
oh,
And he's always reporting different things that are going on in the world where either people are helping each other or there are environmental um, uh, ventures that are being taken in various parts of the world so that it's an antidote, if you will. And I totally agree with you that if we don't fill our lives with that, what do we have to build on? What do we have to appreciate? Where does our gratitude come from? Otherwise, we're afraid and angry all the time.
that's right. There used to be, and maybe there still is, something called the Good News Network,
Right.
right? In which good news is what's reported. And what you were saying about things that are based in the body, a massage, for instance, we need to honor the body. I don't know a lot about Eastern traditions and the effect, the idea that some Eastern traditions have about the value of the body. I do know that there are some religious views in the West that condemn the body as an instrument of potential sin. And I think that is such a shame because while people do things to their own bodies and to other people's bodies, which degrade both themselves and the other. Our bodies are the vehicles, I believe that our bodies are the vehicle through which divine consciousness looks out. I believe that the divine is who we are, that we are essentially filters for divine consciousness. In fact, I believe that everything is divine. So that's one question that some people may, find surprising, but that consciousness itself is what looks through us. And we have these bodies because our bodies are necessary to process what life is. Our bodies also, they protect us. When I get nervous, I know that my body gets tense. And so it's really just so necessary to be good to our bodies. There is a Catholic saint famous for talking about my brother, the ass. Is that Saint Francis?
It might be.
And
I don't know what you're going to say next, but
okay, no, he says my brother, the ass. In other words, thinking of his body as the beast of burden
I
who
see.
carries him around, that we need to be good to this beast, this
Hmm.
animal in
Hmm.
which we live, because we are consciousness.
Right.
I'm getting esoteric. I'm
No, no,
sorry. It's
I'm
the
with
way
you.
I'm.
I'm with you on it. And I think that, again, where people lose a sense of innate happiness is when they don't take care of their bodies. They know they should. They know they should move
Mhm.
their bodies. They know that they should be out in nature, all the things that they know they should do, but they don't give
Mhm.
themselves permission to actually
Yeah,
do it.
yeah, right.
So, what are
And
your,
I know also that you and I are so lucky that we have the time to talk about this.
yes,
That's luxury, having the time to think and talk about something that isn't directly related to having enough food to eat and
yes,
having shelter.
yes.
I'm always aware of that.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that, the idea of the butterfly who flaps its wings and it can be felt across the world. I think when we are fortunate enough to have this time to be able to talk and to reflect and to create and to express, that energy goes out into the world. So we don't have to be physically active unless that's what we're called to do. But that energy of gratitude, energy of love, energy of connection, people feel that. Even
Mhm.
if they don't know where it's coming from, they respond to it. So maybe I'm not out there on the picket line or I'm not a first responder, but that doesn't mean I don't pray for or care about or donate when I can. It's
Right.
all part of this exchange, don't you think? Of we're all in this together.
I do. I think that our thoughts and our emotions travel farther than we think they do. I am so happy to see that the scientific knowledge now that trees are related through their branches, through their roots, that trees hold hands,
Yes.
that there is a network in nature of beings who share consciousness with each other through root systems. And I think that the same is true as above. What is it?
As
As
above, so below.
above, something the as above, so below. Or right. So that what's up here is the same as what's down here, that it all there is a web of light, there is a web of communication, and it happens whether we want to or not. Whether we want to be communicating something or not. I woke up one morning in a friend's home where I was visiting. There was a woman who was not happy that I was visiting our mutual friend. And I woke up and I felt a strong pain in my gut. And I said to my friend, why? I have this awful pain in my gut. And my friend said, oh, that would be so-and-so. She's not happy that you're here. And I thought, really? Wow. That I think that happens, that we catch other people's emotions, whether we want to or not, which also means that we project our emotions into other people, whether we want to or not.
Yes.
There is a phrase in Hebrew, lashon hara, don't say bad things about people, because those things go into the people. And I think that's very important, that we speak well, or being a good person.
You
Being a
know,
good person has many ways.
oh my gosh. Although I have to say, I think it's such a profound statement from that tradition. And it also reminds me that we've gotten that message from, of all places, Disney. And remember the Bambi movie where I think it's the mother says, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
All right.
There's something to that. It's not just being polite. There's, depending on how deeply you read it, of course, there is an awareness that unkind words carry an energy to them.
Yeah,
And whether we recognize it or not, we do somewhere in our being. It may not be consciously, but it's such a good thing to remember.
that's right. And on the other side of that, there's this phrase that says, oh, she lights up a room when she goes in it. So it's also true that when we feel good and we are happy to be somewhere, when we feel that bounce in our lives, other people feel that too, in a
Yes.
good way.
Yes. And I think it gives them hope.
Many years ago, a phrase popped into my head, and I used to have it as part of my email signature. I don't think I do anymore. This is the phrase: love is a communicable ease.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah, I like that.
Ah, delicious. Would you talk a little bit about the energy portraits that you do?
Oh, I would love to. And if it might be a little clunky to arrange this, but can I share my screen? Can we do that? Or
I think we can't do this on a podcast.
okay, fine. Okay, that's just fine. So energy portraits are a phrase actually that I think I made it up. At least I was the first person that I knew of to be using it. In 1998, a friend urged me, an energy worker in upstate New York, would work on me and say, oh, do you see this beautiful seafoam green coming out of your heart? And I would say, no, I don't know what are you talking about? Years later, he said, I want you to see if you can see my energy field, because let's just give it a try. I said, I can't see that. But we sat in a room and I looked at his heart and I didn't see a thing. But then I looked with my imagination. I said, well, if there were a color, what would it be? I said, well, if there were a color, it would be pink and maybe green. And he said, yes. And what about here and here and here and here? And I allowed myself to imagine that if there were a color, what would it be? So I described his whole energy field. And he said, that is exactly right. Next week, I want you to paint that. He knew I had just bought some pastels and some pastel paper. So next week, I allowed myself to see if there were a color, what would it be? So this was all in my imagination. And I made a painting that he then said, yes, that's the way I look as an energy being. The energy flow through my being comes out looking like this and like that and like that and like that. And that was the first energy portrait. This was in 1998. And since then, I have made many, 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 many of them. An energy portrait, the way I do them, and I call them soul journey energy portraits, is like a snapshot of the energy flow at a particular moment in time. It can be for this week or several months, whatever it is. I look up above the person's head to see what we call the crown chakra. A chakra is an energy center. We are beings made not only of flesh and bone, but also of the energy. When you rub your hands together like this until it's really hot, and then you move them apart, and then slowly move them back together, there is a place where you can feel resistance. That resistance is energy. It's the energy of your body. We have this energy flowing through us. And some people, like me, can sense the way that energy looks and feels and sounds. And so I paint or draw. I don't know what the right word is when you're using pastels, it's drawing. I paint, I draw what I see in my mind's eye of the colors throughout the body, including the arms and the legs. And as I see them, I also am receiving sound and an urge in my throat to express the sound. Sometimes the sound is me delivering a message, because I am what, among other things, I am what is generally called a psychic, and I do soul readings. So this is an audio-visual soul reading, and I deliver messages from the angelic realm, from the divine, from the helping spirits around people, as well as from their own expanded consciousness, because we exist not only in our bodies, and this might be a really tough one for people who are not engaged at this time in metaphysics. We exist all over the cosmos. I believe, and I have come to this belief through the creation of the energy portraits, I believe that when creator energy, source, God, whatever you want to call it, has this urge to create a thing, a being, not a thing, a being, that urge emerges from source consciousness and goes all over throughout the cosmos. And so when Nina is released from the inchoate mass of all that is, Nina lives everywhere in this one little adorable baby Nina body, and way out there in other galaxies. That is a far stretch. And you know what? I don't even understand how that can happen, but I feel it's true. And whether I feel it's true or not doesn't matter. I see these visions of the body. I hear and I sing. Sometimes I sing what's known as light language, which is kind of like a cosmic DNA. And I keep on doing these because, as weird as they sometimes look and as weird as they sometimes sound, my clients tell me that they make sense to them, that they help them, inspire them, that they move them, that they help them feel that they are true. Some of us grow up feeling that we don't exist, that we don't deserve to exist, that who we are is irrelevant or not true in some way. The energy portraits that I do, I am told by my clients, help them feel that they are there, that there is a being in there that may have been suppressed, that may always feel a little out of sync with the rest of the world, but that's the authentic self. These soul journey energy portraits help people feel their authenticity. And that's a big one, to feel authentic.
It's
Everything,
huge.
huge. So much of what we learn from school, from our parents, and then from our peers tell us that unless we match a certain paradigm that we see in front of us, that we don't count. Unless we look a certain way, we don't count. That is such bull. We all count. We're here because we need to be here.
Well, it's all what I, it's all part of that cultural conditioning, right? To behave in a certain way and meet certain expectations. So the energy portrait that you did for me, I felt something very similar, that there was a reality that was the underpinning of my being. And I think that many of us, and I think this is part of the lack of happiness, aside from many of the things that you've said, is that we don't allow ourselves to get out of that box of how we've been defined or what the expectations are that have been put upon us by the rest of the world, our families and school and church and so forth. But I think that what is such a great invitation, if you will, in your explanation of what you're doing and how you're doing it, is that when we're open enough to begin to say, what else is out there? Who am I? Even in the midst of a busy day, even in the midst of running a company or running a department or running a family or whatever it is that we're doing. But to be able to have that open-ended question that opens the door to other awarenesses, other realities, that I think that's a doorway for us.
It is. And one of the ways that we can become aware of that is to acknowledge that sometimes when we hear a voice in our head, for instance, sometimes if I drop something on the floor and I'm about to walk away from it, I actually hear a voice in my head that says, pick it up. And I have to pick it up. Some people are called crazy because they hear voices. I thought I was going crazy in my, let's see, I wasn't yet 30. I was probably in my late 20s. And I didn't, it wasn't that I was hearing voices in my head, but there were words in my head that I wasn't conscious of having put there. And I honestly thought that I was insane. And then Lily Tomlin became famous. Lily Tomlin, with her many characters, with her Ruth Ann, whose voice I won't even try to imitate, with her Ernestine, the
Right.
telephone operator, all of her characters. And I realized these characters were somewhere in her consciousness. And I thought, okay, I'm not crazy. This is a facility that people have to be aware of other ways of thinking that sometimes pop through. So I worked with that, and I actually found a way to listen to the voice in my head. And I gave myself permission to sit at a typewriter because I like typewriters. Typewriters, I am that old. So I would sit at the typewriter and I would type. And I would type everything, and they turned into like short stories, stream of consciousness writing. They didn't make sense, but I needed to get it out. And then shortly after that, I had a psychic reading from a guy who said, there are uh, guides who are waiting for you, who have a lot to tell you. So he said, sit down at a certain time. I sat down and boom, there was a feeling in my head. And then there were more words and I typed them out. These were definitely not the crazy voice in my head going blah, 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 blah. These were, this is so, and now we want to tell you about this, and now we want to tell you about this. And that's the way I developed my ability to channel. But that's even beyond what I would say is something, a practice that most people have time for or even the desire to develop. But you're not crazy. We are multiple awarenesses.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that we choose to allow to be front and center is what we call who we are. But it's okay. It's okay to have these other thoughts. I'm sorry. I know I went on a roll with that one.
No, I'm so glad you did because, boy, I think of so many people that I know or that I work with who, if you give them the right space, they will admit to something similar to what you're talking about. And you
Mhm.
know, there are lots of books out written by physicians under pseudonyms who have had experiences with angels or guides or people crossing over and understandings that are not normally accessible to most people because we don't allow ourselves to have it because we don't want to be seen as crazy or we don't even think of ourselves as crazy, right? But
Yeah,
I think I don't know, you tell me, but I think that happiness and joy is all wrapped up in this discovery of what else is there for us if we give ourselves the opportunity to ask the question and then listen, look.
that's right. And what is there for us includes, who am I? What is there for me inside myself?
Mm.
So many people. I teach people how to do these energy portraits. And some people will say, oh, I'm not an artist. I can't draw a straight line. Well, being an artist has absolutely nothing to do with being able to draw a straight line. We don't allow ourselves the freedom to think of ourselves as anything but what we've been conditioned to think of ourselves as. So it's like, actors who are waiting tables, they're still actors, even though they're waiting tables. We're born as artists. You give a kid a crayon, he's not going to say, oh, I can't draw a straight line. I'm not an artist. A crayon is simply a way to express what's in there. And therapy, the art therapy, I mean, it is therapeutic to allow what's in us to bring it outside of ourselves. It's a great relief. It's a pressure valve, whether it's stream of consciousness writing, which people can do as a regular practice called journaling, or whether it's just allowing yourself to doodle or get a box of crayons and let yourself really just scribble. And don't think of it as making art. Don't think of it
Right.
as something that you need to be proud of. Just let it out. And then you keep it or you throw it away. Or, of course, you could even ritually burn it if you want to impart some spiritual release ceremony in your life. That's something people do. We just need to give ourselves permission to be who we really are. And I was once really in a bad place. I was depressed. I was in an unhealthy relationship, but I felt obligated to be in this relationship because, as it turns out, it was really doing some good things for me. But I remember someone who was a therapist, who was also my friend, said, and my name at that time was Bobby. You knew me as Bobby, I think. And because it was short for Roberta, which is the name on my birth certificate, which I never
Mhm.
liked, she said, Bobby, what do you want? I couldn't answer, not because I didn't want to tell her, but because I didn't know. I was in such a displaced place in my life that I didn't know what I wanted. I had hidden my authentic response to my life so deeply because I didn't like what my life was like that I didn't know. Boy, and that not knowing, being aware that I didn't know was a big flag. I knew, something is wrong. I didn't even know if I wanted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I did not know.
Yes. There's a lot of women like that.
Yes, yes. And one of the reasons that I'm so grateful for modern medicine is that I'm alive at this advanced age. And there are many people older than I am. But just think about it. 50 years ago, I would have been dead. Certainly 100 years ago, I would have been dead much earlier. Just because my body isn't perfect, it's required lots of help. But I've gotten to the age where I have the luxury, as I said before, to be aware of who I am, how I feel, to process it. People in earlier ages didn't get to have the far view
Yes.
of how their lives have developed to be what they are. We are so lucky to have that far view. There is one of my teachers was a rabbi of blessed memory. His name was Zalman Schachter Shalomi. He wrote a book called From Aging to Saging. When he was 64, he looked in the mirror. Now, this isn't a rabbi who was trained in the Orthodox, ecstatic religious Orthodox tradition of Judaism. He was a smart guy. He was perceptive. He had studied in every conventional way there was to study. He looked in the mirror at 64 and said, "Oh my God, I'm old." And he was thrown. And he said, "Okay, with my background, with all the study that I've been doing, if I'm freaking out, just think of what normal people are who don't give their lives to the study of the human condition and the possibilities therein." So he wrote this book, From Aging to Saging. And in this book, he recommends that when we get to a certain part of our life, probably when we're retired, when the kids have all grown, when we are no longer trotting along in the mainstream of productivity in order to make a living, then let's sit back and ask ourselves some questions. What was your life about? Your life that you're still living, but this part of your life. And he calls it harvesting your life. As
Wonderful.
a way to appreciate what you've accomplished and what you might still want, not quite bucket list, but directions that you might still be able to go in.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful book, From Aging to Saging.
Well, I've noted that.
Zalman Schachter Shalomi.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well,
Yep.
Leah, I'm so glad that you took the time to join me today because, first of all, it's been a very long time since I've had the chance to talk with you. And secondly, I think you've shared so many wonderful things about life and what's possible. And I hope we can get to do it another time.
Nina, thank you so much. Thank you so much for reaching out to me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now, would you like to tell people how they can reach you?
I certainly would.
Okay.
I have a website. It's called lightspeak.com. LIGHTSPEAK.com. On that website, you'll see examples of just about everything I do, and you can reach me there.
Great.
If you want, my email is lightspeak@gmail.com.
There you
And
go.
I'm always happy to hear from people.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a comment. Your comment helps me reach more listeners. Thank you.